Chapter 18. The Emperor was normally a clever man. He seldom did anything that Darth Vader thought particularly unwise, much less stupid. Yet as Vader stood before his master in the Emperor's castle, this latest bit of twisted business fits squarely into the latter category. Stupid and dangerous. Not that he would dare say so, to the Emperor's face or behind his back. But the Emperor was not so powerful as to be able to read thoughts. Just as well, too, because if he could, surely he would destroy Vader here where he stood for his opinion of this foolishness. Then again, Vader thought as he stared at his master. Could he read thoughts? It was doubtful this plan would ever have come to pass. You disapprove, Lord Vader. It is not my place to disapprove, my master. Quite so. Later, as he walked towards his castle, Vader considered his response to this new gambit. There seemed little he could do save to monitor the situation, to stand still and watch. This did not improve his mood. Luke and Dash traveled with Koth Malan and his private land speeder to a base hidden in the mountains 2 standard hours away from the city. Here they met with the squad of Bothan pilots and weapons officers and inspected their ships. The dozen fighters were BTL S-3s, 2-seat Y-wings, the Alliance's most common attack craft. They weren't as fast as X-wings or TIEs, didn't have the firepower, but were rugged and could take a lot of punishment. Not the latest or the best ships in vacuum, but they ought to be more than enough to stop a single freighter. They wore Alliance colors and ID codes. Bunch of antiques, Dash said. Probably have to get out and push if you want to go any faster than a broke-leg droid. Luke ignored him. To the leader of the squad, he said, You have astromechs for all of these? The leader, a Bothan who looked as young for his species as Luke was, nodded. Yes, we have droids, and all the ships have Taman back 9 4-laser cannons run off standard Noble Dex generators. Unfortunately, we don't have proton torpedoes for the Arakid launchers. Luke shrugged. Doesn't matter. We don't want to blast the freighter anyhow. We want it in one piece. How much flying time does your squad have? Not much, I'm afraid. Most of us are relatively new. 100 hours or less in these birds, but the boys are quick, and the gunners are pretty fair shots, though we haven't gotten much practice. That wasn't so good. We have a few days before we get our target location, Luke said. Maybe we can find a place to do a few maneuvers. We'd love that, Commander Skywalker. The squad is at your disposal. Luke grinned. He did still like the sound of that. Commander Skywalker. He could see it becoming Colonel Skywalker, General Skywalker. Wouldn't interfere with his Jedi studies to be a general. Ben had been a general, hadn't he? That path would have to begin later. First this, then Han had to be rescued. That might be tough, but for a slow run against a dung freighter, surely he could get these guys into shape in a couple of days. Leia was contemplating putting a credit coin into one of the rigged gambling machines. She was so bored she was about ready to give it a try. Avaro approached her. I just got a comm from off planet. Black Sun's representative is en route. They will be here in 3 days. Leia felt a rush of relief. Thank goodness. Then, as Avaro waddled off, she thought about what he'd just said. They will be here in 3 days. She? Well, why not? No rule said a woman couldn't be a criminal. In a perverse way, it pleased her that the representative from Black Sun would be a woman. And about time she got here, too. The operative they were awaiting arrived at the hidden base on Bothawui 3 days after Luke and Dash. Koth Malan ushered the operative into a private room, where the 4 of them met. Here are the coordinates of the flight plan, the agent said. He produced a tiny computer and laid it on the table. Milan said, "Any more information on what the project might be?" "Not even rumors. This is closed up tighter than a Corellian clam." "Too bad." The agent looked just like 100 other Bothans Luke had seen. Put him in a crowd and he'd disappear. "You believe these directions to be valid?" Milan asked. He nodded at the small computer. "I do. I received them from our underworld contact. She's never delivered false information before." "Underworld contact," Luke said. "Black Sun," the agent said. Luke and Dash glanced at each other. Luke said, "Black Sun?" Milan answered, "It appears that the organization is courting the Alliance," he said. "They have several times provided us with valuable intelligence. I believe they think the Alliance will win the war against the Empire." "They must be the only ones," Dash said. Milan looked at Dash but ignored what he'd said. "War, like politics, sometimes makes for strange bedfellows. One uses the tools one has." Luke shook his head. "I don't like it. They must expect something in return. And it seemed awfully coincidental that Leia had gone to seek out Black Sun, and here they were delivering invaluable information. Something wasn't quite right about that." "They have not asked for anything." "Yet," Dash said. "Okay," Luke said. "Put that aside for now. If this information is right, how long before we need to launch and get ready?" "Your squad of volunteers has already been put on alert," Milan said. "We'll need to be in position in less than 3 standard hours to make the rendezvous." "We?" "I'll be going along," Milan said, "if Dash Rendar has room on his ship." Dash gave the Bothan a lazy grin. "No problem. Can you cook? Might want to grab a bite while we collect this freighter." "I doubt we'll have time to eat," Luke said. "Maybe you won't, kid, but I can fly and eat at the same time." Luke had to grin. This guy was so full of himself, it was a wonder he didn't explode and spew ego all over the place. "Better get to our ships," Luke said. Dash gave him a mock salute. "Aye, aye, Commander." Time to go. Luke led the dozen Y-Wings away from the planet in the sensor shadow of the local moon to help them avoid Imperial patrols. Although the formation was a little ragged, they flew pretty well for a group who'd only had minimal time in their craft. He wouldn't want to take them into battle against the best TIE wing in the Imperial Navy, but they ought to be able to help surround a freighter and stop it. The coordinates and time were coming around, and he turned his attention to the ambush. Behind him, Dash flew his chrome ship, nearly invisible against the backdrop of airless space, with Koth Malan as a passenger. "Keep it tight, boys," Luke said into the comm. "We're almost on station. Let's hear you sound off, Blue Squad." The pilots of the Y-Wings logged in. He'd kept it simple. Each of the attack ships got a number, and he'd christened the unit with a color. "Copy," Luke said. "We're there. Stall 'em in position." Blue Squadron obeyed, bringing their fighters to a halt. They floated in the middle of nowhere, waiting. If the information was correct, the freighter ought to be popping out of hyperspace less than 100 kilometers dead ahead. The freighter pilot must have overslept. The ship dropped into real space all right, but only 50 clicks away. It was a stock-like freighter, Corellian, though different in configuration from the Millennium Falcon. Instead of the saucer-like body with the twin nose and offset control cockpit, this was a long oval with the ends squared off, with a rectangular detachable cargo container slung under its belly. It looked kind of like a graphic of a giant blaster. "Heads up, Blue Squad. There's our target. Attack formation." The ship came out of hyperspace relatively slowly, but since it was closer than anticipated, they didn't have much time. Luke switched to a standard operations channel and hailed the freighter. "Attention on board the freighter Saprosa. This is Commander Skywalker of the Alliance. Shut down your engines and prepare to be boarded." If everything went as planned, Koth Balan in a vac suit would be escorted on board the freighter by a couple of guards and technicians also riding with Dash. They'd be in and out in a few minutes. "This is the captain of the freighter Saprosa. Are you crazy?" came the reply. "We're hauling fertilizer here. What kind of pirates are you?" "We're not pirates. Like I said, we're with the Alliance, and maybe we have a big garden. Pull it up, Captain, and nobody gets hurt." There came a long pause. It was possible the pilot didn't know what he was hauling, but Luke didn't believe that. If he didn't know, he'd have no objection to being boarded. If he did... "Listen, pal, I'm working under contract to XTS, and my orders are to deliver my cargo to an agent on Bothawui. Why don't you go bother somebody smuggling guns or spice or something?" "Captain, either you shut down your engines or we'll shut them down for you. Some of my gunners can pick flies off a wall with their laser cannons." Well, it was possible, though he hadn't seen any of them shooting quite that well during maneuvers. The freighter pilot didn't know that. The freighter suddenly dropped its cargo module, speeded up, and turned to starboard. It was going to make a run for it. Luke switched back to the tactical op-chan. "Gotta do it the hard way, boys. Target the engines only. If you aren't sure, don't take the shot. We don't want to blow this baby up. Move in." The distance between Blue Squadron and the freighter decreased in a hurry. This was stupid. The ship was unarmed and much slower than the Y-Wings. If they wanted to cook the captain, he was dinner, and he had to know it. The freighter tried to move at a right angle to the incoming fighters, but they were almost in range. Luke was in the lead. His ship was faster than the Y-Wings, and it would take only a couple of blasts to knock out the engines, assuming they had standard shields. Another 2 seconds. R2 whistled. Uh-oh. Luke didn't like what he heard. "Put it on screen, R2. The image of the freighter appeared on Luke's screen. Where there had been 4 smooth sections of hull before, red lights now blinked. Another 2 spots flashed blue. Plates had slid back on the freighter to reveal hidden weapons. "Heads up, everybody. This thing has teeth. He's got laser cannons fore and aft and what look like missile launchers ventral and dorsal. Watch yourselves." Luke put his X-Wing into a sweeping turn as the freighter's port laser fired. The blast was close enough to scramble his comm. One of the Y-Wings, Blue 4, dived at the freighter, targeting its engine compartment. Luke saw the fighter's beam stroke the target, but the bright blue splash as the beam hit revealed that the freighter had augmented shields. Not such an easy target after all. The freighter's cannon found Blue 4, and the ship blew apart. Man, that must be some wattage behind those guns. "Break off! Circle and regroup!" Luke called into his comm. Blue 2 was on the way in, and it aborted its attack run. Too late. Blue 2 became shattered history. 4 of the Bothan ships looped away in a pretty good formation, Dash and the Outrider in tandem with them. Luke was close enough to see the missile port on top of the freighter blow a cloud of gas into space that crystallized and glittered under the local sun's light. "He's got a missile off!" Luke yelled. "I got it," Dash said. "I'll hammer that spike into scrap." Luke watched Dash's ship roll and dive, and his robotic guns began spewing coherent bolts of energy. He couldn't see the missile, but he saw Dash continuing his attack, saw the guns spraying their hard light spears. "Blast!" Dash said. "I've got to be hitting it. Why doesn't it stop?" "Dash, come on!" Luke yelled. "Shut up! I've got it! Stop, you blasted piece of junk! Stop!" "Move, Dash!" "No, I'll get it." "Incoming!" Blue 6 yelled. "Scatter!" The 4 fighters tried to split up, separating like an opening fist. Too late. The missile exploded among them, and when the blast cleared, all 4 ships, 8 Bothans, were gone. "I can't have missed," Dash said, his voice incredulous. "I can't." Luke's anger swept over him as he put the X-Wing into a sharp and twisting turn. He headed right at the freighter. 6 of his squadron had been destroyed, just like that. And Dash, hotshot Dash, he'd screwed up royally. If it hadn't cost lives, Luke would have felt that the braggart got what he deserved. If he'd had any doubts that the crew of the freighter knew what they carried, they were gone now. He was too incensed to use the Force. He ignored the energy beam stabbing at him, ignored R2's cacophony of whistles and bleats, ignored everything but the engine compartment of the freighter under his guns. Fired. Fired again and again. Saw the radiation absorbed by the shields, saw the blue glow brighten, saw the force field give way under his attack, saw the engine compartment rupture, smoke, flash red and purple as his laser beams baked and killed it. I couldn't have missed, Dash said. He sounded dazed. Stow that, Dash, Luke ordered. It's too late to worry about it now. Get ready to bring your ship in. Luke switched channels. To the freighter, he said, Your engines are dead, Captain, and that's what you and your crew will be if you fire another laser or missile. Do you copy? A brief pause. We copy. You are hereby considered prisoners of war. Stand by to be boarded. If you value your lives, best you don't mess with your real cargo. If anything happens to it, you will suffer the same fate. Luke shut off his comm. Oh man, he'd lost half his squad. He should have known it was too easy to be true. A dozen Bothans had died to secure this vessel and its computer. He should have been ready for a trick. He should have known better than to trust the Empire. He should have realized that Dash was more talk than substance. He was a lousy commander. Every time he went out, he lost people, and there was nobody else to blame for this. Yeah, Dash had failed him, but it was his responsibility. He was the commander of the mission. He'd thought it would be so easy. A piece of cake, he'd told Dash. Yeah, he was too cocky, too self-confident, too certain the Force would show him the right path. Wrong. On some level, it made him angry. The Force didn't always come when he needed it. But the dark side would be there if you needed it. Always. Oh, no, you don't. Don't even think about going down that road. But it was tempting. All that power. He had felt it. He shook his head. He hoped whatever was in the computer the freighter was carrying was worth what it had cost to collect it. It had better be. And that's the end of the chapter. Hope you enjoyed it. Talk to you soon.